GyroGearloose here with another installment of RV Hacking on the Cheap. Today we're going to discuss the installation of a voltage and amperage meter for the AC side of your trailer or coach. You might wonder, what is the importance of having such a meter available on your trailer or coach? And the answer is that when you first buy a trailer, or if you've had one for 30 years, they tell you don't brown out your air conditioner. Don't brown out your air conditioner. They keep telling you not to pull more power than you have available. Don't run your trailer through a thin extension cord off a 15 amp circuit, etc. The problem is most of us don't know exactly how much power is available. And in fact, even when an outlet is labeled 30 amp or even 50 amps, the campsite may not actually be sending you that much power. In which case you will again be browning out, which means sending too little voltage or too few amps to your air conditioner or other items on your coach and damaging your equipment. So to prevent this, I'm going to show you how to install this handy digital meter, which is available extremely cheaply online. I picked this up for about $11 with shipping, so it's extremely affordable. It's great insurance against exactly what I described, where you are underpowering your trailer and burn out very expensive equipment. Quite often, an RV dealer will tell you to install one of these on an outlet as a cheap option. This actually costs more than the digital meter, oddly enough, and in fact only shows voltage, and it's not all that accurate, honestly. Showing the voltage sag is essentially telling you too late. It's like having an alarm that tells you when you have smoke in your trailer. There's already a fire. If you're only looking at the voltage and it has already dropped, you've already browned out your equipment. That's not a good thing. You want to preemptively know how much current you're drawing, or perhaps more importantly, when you're getting close to drawing too much power. So a meter like this is handy, but it's not enough. In order to install this modification, we're going to open the power distribution box of the coach. This is where your AC meets your DC system. That's where your line voltage, 120 volt, it goes through a converter or inverter and is turned into 12 volts for your trailer to use. We're going to open this box now, and I'll show you what's inside. Here we are inside the power box, and at this point, once you've removed the cover, I'm going to tell you that you should always turn off the power. Keep in mind that your trailer has two sources of power, so you want to disconnect your line voltage, that's the 120 volt that we're going to be working on, as well as the 12 volt battery. You want your trailer to be completely unpowered because both power sources are going through this location, and you don't want to brush the wrong side and get a nasty surprise. On the left side of my power box, you can see the AC side. What's actually occurring here is the power is coming in, and it's actually going through this top breaker here, the 30 amp one, if you can read that label. And it actually goes through the breaker the reverse way of how it's normally done inside of your house, which is to say the supply is coming from what would normally be the load side. It comes in this breaker, goes to the bus bar, and then goes back out through all the breakers to the other loads. I'll pause here and note that that 20 amp breaker underneath is kept off on my trailer. I do keep it off because that is the breaker that goes to my air conditioner. This prevents me, or my wife, or me, or the kids, or me from turning on the air conditioner by accident at the thermostat. This prevents me from, as I have the coach powered now, through a thin extension cord, accidentally turning on the air conditioner and browning out in my own driveway. This also prevents the kids from tampering with switches and doing damage. When I know that I have good power is the only time I will turn this breaker back on again and allow current to go up to the air conditioner. Briefly, I'll say that on the right side of the distribution box is the DC side, where all of your 12 volt appliances are connected into the power box. At the bottom of my box is where the transformer is that converts the AC into the DC. In order to install this meter, you'll need to make 4 taps. Actually 2 taps into the power and 2 taps into its own current transformer, which is how it senses the amperage AC that's going through the line. If you can see this little ring, that is the current transformer. And what that does is it just sits on one of the power lines coming into the coach from the AC line, and when amperage goes through that wire, it induces a voltage in this coil. It is not electrically connected onto the power in any way. It is literally just a coil that sits around that wire. To install the current transformer and one lead of the 120 volt power, you'll simply disconnect the wire from the breaker and slip the transformer over the wire, and then replace the wire back on the breaker. Also adding one lead of the 120 volt sense wire. The other 120 volt wire is connected onto the bus bar here. This is where you can see the heavy white wire coming up and the green wire. This is the common lead coming from the 120 volt supply. If you can see, it's kind of hard to pick up on this camera. That is the other thin wire for the 120 volt coming up and also joined into one of the screws on the bar. Now we'll look at the meter. If we look at the back side of this meter, it has two simple connections, well, 2 points of connection. Over here is a power input in which you put 12 volts into the meter. This is what runs the backlight and the entire meter. These terminals down here are where the ends of that coil come up. Again, note that they are not wired into the AC power. You'll also note that I'm using surprisingly thin wires to put this meter in place. This is actually allowable because we're handling extremely low amperages. There is not the amperage that the meter is reading going through these wires. There's a sensing voltage coming from that current transformer, which is fairly trivial in power. Even running 120 volt through these wires, it is still an extremely small amperage and is allowable. Once we have put the current transformer over the line and replaced it back onto the breaker, we connect the ends of the current transformer to the 2 terminals here. I used yellow and green wires, which makes it more obvious than the red and black, which was already color-coded for the power. Obviously up here, we will connect the power into the 120 volt. These are the wires that came from the red and black inside of the power distribution box, and these wires are carrying 120 volts. To install the actual meter, all I did is cut a hole into this panel. This is a very hollow panel that was just sitting next to the power supply, so it's very easy to cut a little hole and run the wires next door from the power supply into where I wanted the meter to be. The backlight also makes a handy night light. Once the meter has been inserted into the hole, we simply replace the panel and screw it back into place. There we go. We can now read 120 volts, currently showing 119 volts, and I'm currently drawing 0.7 amps because my battery is slightly discharged. Now let's see what it reads if we turn on more things. So right now I'm going to turn on the overhead fans, which are one of the larger 12 volt draws I have on this trailer, and you'll see the amperage will jump. If you note 2 things, the amperage jumped when the fan first started and then settled back to about 3 amps. That's true of a lot of things on the trailer, where the amperage is much higher to start something than to keep it running. This is why you should never turn everything on all at once on your trailer, even if you do have enough amperage available, because the starting amperage may not be available. Generally, it's good, if you're going to use your air conditioner, to start it as one of the first things, as it has one of the worst startup amperages. I hope you've enjoyed my instructional video. This has been GyroGearloose with RV Hacking on the Cheap. We'll see you next time.